Batman Return of the Joker is a 1992 Sunsoft release for the Game Boy. It's stuffed with beginner's traps, clunky combat, and just enough artificial difficulty to be a bit of a hassle. It's a good-looking, bite-sized experience that does a few neat things despite some of its shortcomings. Game with the same name dropped a year earlier on the NES, but it is completely different despite the title and similar artwork on the cover. This is purely speculation, but Konami ended up acquiring the rights to the Caped Crusader later in '92, so a lot of these later Sunsoft entries feel more like last-ditch efforts to capitalize on the brand than true Batman experiences. There are some nuggets of greatness occasionally in this bite-sized handheld adventure, but ultimately it feels like a reworked project with familiar assets tossed in to earn an easy dollar. Again, this is all just a guess, so take it with a grain of salt. As soon as you boot this thing up, you'll be greeted with a title screen followed by a stage select. There are 4 distinct levels in total, but you can only choose to tackle the first 3 from the get-go. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter which area you opt to take on here. Batman's skills don't improve or change throughout the game, so it's kind of a pointless inclusion to give the player this freedom. I'm not complaining, but I do find it weird that the stages are numerically labeled as opposed to being thematically exhibited. It almost feels like a forgotten debug mode overlooked by the developers before it came time to ship the game, or maybe I'm looking too far into it and should just move on. Let's move on. The first area is a sewer complete with bursting pipes to drown our Clydesdale-legged crusader. It's a treacherous introduction to the game if you choose this path first. There are a few enemies placed throughout the stage, but there aren't many moments to get accustomed to the controls or any wiggle room when it comes to navigating the many obstacles therein. A lot of the time you will need to sit around waiting for the traps in this area to play themselves out. Yes, the water effect is really nifty. Wow, look what the Game Boy can do. Can I play now? Can I play now? At least I can use my slick bat moves to avoid some of the late-stage death pits. When it comes to moves, Batman's got 'em more than ever before on a handheld device. One button jumps, the other attacks. Incredibly innovative, I know, but get this! Pressing up on the D-pad deploys the grapple, which also doubles as a hefty power punch if you manage to get in close with a baddie. The wall jump from the NES version of the movie game also makes its triumphant return, but there aren't a lot of vertical setups to make it a viable option, so don't get too excited. Everything is responsive, but I often accidentally spat out my grapple when attempting to do other things. It's annoying and makes simple combat tasks frustrating, especially in the few situations where precision is key. Overall though, the getting around is fine. Swinging around never feels as good as say Bionic Commando, but it serves its purpose, even if the levels don't seem designed for the grapple in mind. As I said before, this feels like an entirely different game with a Batman veneer incorporated as an afterthought. The swinging stuff seems tacked on, almost as if they simply added a few more death pits and ceilings to attach your doohickey to. Most of the time it feels like the game is catching me with my pants down. The stages require a certain amount of memorization to complete. All of the sprites are large and detailed, which is nice and all, but when it comes to the platforming, there are blind jumps everywhere due to how congested everything is. There are beginner's traps in all of the areas that require vertical exploration, which can get pretty irritating. The plus side is that the levels are all extremely short, so it shouldn't take the average player very long to map them out. It's not good game design, but at least it's manageable. I just expect more from this era of Sunsoft. The second stage is a military compound swarming with ninja because Batman. The enemies here can deflect your batarangs, which is annoying because these items automatically replace your standard melee attack. So here's the thing. Similarly to Batman the movie on the NES, the Dark Knight uses his fists straight out of the box. Batarangs are tucked away throughout the stages as a limited projectile perk, but they are almost entirely useless against a lot of the bosses and a few of the enemies, including the swarms of ninja that populate this second area. What's the point of having so many Batarang caches when the things are so easily blocked? It's like the game is toying with my mind. Should I grab these projectiles or stick to my fists? I mean, in most action titles, it's a good thing to find and equip a new weapon, isn't it? Maybe these limited throwing tools can give me an advantage over my adversaries. Lord knows I need one because the combat in this game is straight up broken. Enemies only do damage to the thick-thighed thunder-bottomed bat when they attack, so you can kind of jostle them around with your child-bearing Kardashian hips a little bit. When it comes to going toe-to-toe with them, there's no finesse. It's just a sloppy barrage of hit trades, which results in button mashing, or better yet, avoidance altogether. That's right, when I play this thing, I keep my distance or plow my way through the baddies. The hit detection is all over the place, so it's much more effective to find your way around skirmishes or tank a hit or two in order to make your way through the stages. There are health pickups everywhere, and hell, a lot of the enemies run away as soon as they get in a few attacks. Even they don't want to deal with this game's horrendous combat. Bottom line, the second level is far less frustrating if you just make a beeline for the exits. B for Batman. It's almost entirely platform based, with some bomb obstacles to avoid and chasms to leap over. You've got the legs for it, so just do it. Let the ninja swarms do their thing and get to the end. The less time you spend here, the better, because I'm pretty sure they use this area's music in some countries to torture prisoners of war. Music might have a familiar chiptune ring to it. Manami Matsume composed the soundtrack here, and it has a very Mega Man vibe going on. Mega Man 1, parts of Mega Man 2, UN Squadron, Mercs. Check out the VGM 101 podcast for more free advertising. She is one of the greatest video game composers of all time, who still selectively works on projects to this day. Previous Sunsoft Batman titles had music pieces entirely created by their main 8-bit man, Naoki Kodaka, and his presence is definitely noticeable here. Whoa, I'm not suggesting Matsume's music is bad, because it's not, it's awesome. All of her work is terrific. I'm just saying this soundtrack sounds like Mega Man, almost as if this wasn't intended to be a Batman game, but I think I've bludgeoned that point to death. Bat point. It is easily the best thing about this handheld Return of the Joker experience, and this third stage's theme is pretty damn catchy. It's just a shame the level is so short. The scrolling effects and shading on this bumpy vomit train are particularly noteworthy, but there's only one enemy to battle here. It's a super aggressive linebacker mound of a man, but you know the deal, just avoid him over and over until you reach the boss. It's a lazily designed linear level, seemingly included in the game to dazzle you with its marvelous scrolling effects and jumpy train physics. Once you reach the end, you'll be pitted against Batman's greatest foe, Batman, or rather, Foul Ball. It's actually a pretty fun fight, probably the best in the entire game. His moves are telegraphed quite well, and it isn't a chore to do damage against him. You can also hit him with batarangs, which is a rarity, so I'm all on board with this encounter. If I'm being fair, Ball, the first 3 bosses are all pretty good. So let's talk about them, shall we? Dark Claw is the big bad in the sewers, and wait, Dark Claw? As in the character first seen in Amalgam Comics' Legends of the Dark Claw in the mid-90s? Sadly, no. Of course not. No. This game was released in '92, and that Wolverine-Batman hybrid wasn't a thing until '96. It would have been nice if this was the first introduction to the Amalgam creation, but this isn't a real Batman game under the hood, so we only get bargain bin baddies. I still stand by Foul Ball though. He's the villain we wanted and deserved. The ninja stage has a pretty interesting Shogun Warrior boss to battle it out with as well. His attacks are pretty easy to dodge, but at least there was a modicum of effort put into his design. He even switches up his pattern after a few hits and gets more aggressive. Foul Ball does the same once his health has been chipped away at. Honestly, the bosses are the stars of the show here. They aren't perfect and still suffer a bit due to the inherent hit detection problems, but they are much more interesting to come up against than the standard spastic minions you'll face throughout the regular stages. Throughout the levels, there are a few one-ups stashed in tricky areas. This game has a weird way of dealing with lives. Basically, Batman has a health bar at the top, but once he perishes, the continue screen pops up. These are limited, and the extra lives only give you another tick on your meter. I think I find this strange because I don't feel like I'm getting another shot at the game as a whole. It's more of an upgrade than anything. Am I making any sense at all? Either way, let's just finish this thing. When all of the selectable stages have been conquered, a final 4th area reveals itself. Joker's Lair, the most devious of all criminal hideouts, a limestone cavern. This is where the story gets rather nebulous. I've always considered this a sequel to Sunsoft's own Batman series based off of the Tim Burton film. The in-game sprites and instruction manual illustrations are styled after the comics, yes, but the title, Return of the Joker, insinuates that this is the same Prince of Crime from the '89 movie. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter because I don't take any of this stuff too seriously, but it does bring a few things into question. I guess what I'm saying is that I'm happy for the Joker. Yeah, sure, he failed at taking over Gotham City, but the tenacity of this fella is inspiring. This might be his best plan yet. As the game's booklet describes, precious metals are mysteriously missing from Gotham City mines. One of these metals has a highly toxic composition, which is used to build explosives for missiles. Gotham City police have exhausted their efforts and frantically call to Batman for help. He knows this scheme can only be the insane workings of one criminal mastermind. The Joker has returned. This is some serious stuff, people. The Joker has been hunkering down in this cavern like a limestone clown boy, waiting for his moment to get revenge on Batman for clearly killing him dead at the end of Tim Burton's movie. Take a deep breath. Intense stuff. Unfortunately, this level is about as underwhelming as it gets, with bland visuals, repetitive background patterns, and blind jumps everywhere. What would a platforming stage be without dozens of traps to catch first-time players off guard? Game Design 101. Trickery, deception, tasteful and fair. Batman, Return of the Joker, Game Boy. The fight with the clown Prince of Crime himself is clumsy and mostly unenjoyable due to a gigantic magnet. A prop that could have been a clever nod to the Adam West series, if life I had any confidence that this Sunsoft team deliberately attempted to create a Bat product here. It's the worst fight in the game in my opinion, but I've gotta give credit where it's due. The Joker dance when Batman enters his Minecraft-inspired lair is truly something special. Personally, I think this thing pales in comparison when pitted against its predecessor on the device. Some might say that this one follows the ethos of the lore a lot closer than the original monochromatic outing, but guns and weird machine turrets aside, that movie-based game was just a lot more fun to play. The reason the earlier Sunsoft Batman games worked so well was due to the diminutive size of the character sprite. There was more breadth, specifically in the NES and Game Boy entries. It made it easy to see hazards and death pits. The combat wasn't over-designed, so getting around the environments while fighting enemies always felt rewarding. Return of the Joker on this device is all about fat thighs and filthy guesses. It's cool that you can grab and vault yourself off of stuff, the grapple mechanic is great, but it isn't used to its fullest potential, and everything falls apart when you can't see where you need to jump to next. Cramming this much into a portable experience just didn't work out for the developer. Foul ball. Next time on this channel, more Joker sequels, because we gotta love that Joker, so stay tuned.